Lighting is one of the most important tools in cinematography, if not one of the most defining tools in cinematography. But it can also be a little bit tricky to wrap your head around. And instead of looking at it as an obstacle to creating a good image, I want to help you guys understand how to use light, no matter whatever setting you're in, to help create a better image for interviews. I'm used to working in a lot of uninspiring spaces. And one of the challenges of working in these places is have somebody stand out and to pop. My number one tool for doing this is lighting. I'll show you how to set up the interview and create depth, as well as things to think about in general that hopefully can help improve your cinematography in other aspects. One of the first things that we're going to do before we even begin our framing and our composition, any light that's in the space, we want to make sure that that's off and not disrupting our color or contributing to additional flatness. The first challenge you'll have, no matter where you're shooting, is to find your composition and your framing. A couple things to think about when you're trying to find these things. In the same way in photography that lines are telling, you want to look for the same thing with film. Follow your leading lines. In this instance, this background is very busy. There's a lot going on. It's not so uninspiring and flat, but rather there's a lot of things that pull our focus away from the subject. We want to use composition and framing to help draw the viewer's eyes directly to the thing that we want to see, which of course is our speaker. And so instead of positioning our speaker on the left, where they not only have the least amount of depth when they're speaking, we want to move our person over to the right and frame them between the light that's hanging in the background and the frame. A quick note, whenever you move into a location, always ask to see if you can move the things that are there. Sometimes you just don't have the luxury. Other times you can, and you can help make your background less busy by just removing things that are there. So now that we have our speaker framed, compositioned, this is looking a lot better, but we're still flat. If we were to just shoot this here, we could use the window light and have our subject lit, but there wouldn't be a lot of depth, which means that we don't really have anything pulling our character away from the background, creating a more two-dimensional image. So instead, what we're going to introduce is a key light. For this, I'm going to use the Aperture 300D, but you could use a lot of different things. If you're going to use a hard key light, something without a diffuser, I would recommend bouncing it off a wall or bouncing it off a reflector so that it's not harsh. Harsh lights on the face tend to create really distorted shadows. By using a diffuser, we protect our light and make it much more soft and round. This will help us isolate our body and our face. It's still kind of flat, but we'll get to it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce practicals. This is to help the scene feel alive. Now, I understand in a lot of different settings you might not have this, but you can always bring them. Lamps are really good at helping you motivate additional light that you want to bring in as either a backlight or something else. It also helps liven up the background a little bit so that you can sort of see things when eventually we take away light. So now that we have our key light and we have our practicals, we're going to now start by controlling the brightness. I'm shooting outside a window, and that's giving me a lot of light. However, now I want to take that light away and just focus on the light that I want in the space to help create the fill that I need. To do that, I'm going to use a big blanket. I'm going to block out the window. Having tape on hand definitely makes this job easier. So now that we've controlled the brightness, what we want to do is start to motivate those practicals. So practicals serve two purposes. The first, of course, is to help the space feel more alive, but now we can use our practical to motivate an additional backlight against our speaker, creating more depth. For this, I'm going to use a simple pocket light. Pocket lights are great because they're small and compact. RGB pocket lights are good because they allow you to introduce different ranges of colors, which gives you a spectrum of opportunity. I'm using a pocket light from the brand Bowling. And this is another opportunity for you to make a creative decision. You can use this pocket light and match as best as you can the warmth in Kelvin of your practicals so that the light feels like it's coming from those. Or you can use this second light to create color depth. I wouldn't really recommend going with the color depth route because we don't have anything in this apartment that helps motivate it, so it feels a little off. However, now that we have this backlight, our image is looking much more different. We can see and feel our subject pulling off of our background, whereas we didn't before. The last thing you want to consider if you have it as an option is using a second camera. Second cameras are great. A B cam is really good at making sure that you're cutting between takes. If you have somebody that gaffes, you have a lot of and you have sort of an inconsistency of thought, having that second camera there will help you in the edit and pulling things and making things feel like they're all part of the same sentence, part of the same thought. They can also help you build a little bit more momentum and variety of shots. Instead of just focusing on the head of the person, you could focus on the mouth or the eyes and really focus on a part of their body that's telling the story in a way, build drama, suspense, to give the audience a question. You can apply these simple tips for interviews no matter where you go. Composition, lighting, no matter if you're in a live set or you're working in a studio in a more controlled environment, or you're working in a really difficult place to add depth. These are all things that you want to think about. Don't shoot up against a wall. Try to think about where is the space in the room that gives me the most depth, because that's what we're looking for. And how do you build that? By thinking of lighting. In this example, we used 4 different kinds of light. We had 2 practicals, we had 1 key light, and we had 1 backlight. But even if you take those practicals away and you have just the backlight and the key light, you're already ahead of the game. So thank you so much for all who are watching this. I hope you found value in this tutorial, and I'll catch you next time.